compare the two. I know you can't read the labels. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do this. I can turn on the pointer, right? This is a new talent for me. So, over here you see these 4 sort of ugly arms sticking out from the former district. I called it quadrupus when I was arguing against it. And no arms here, except it sort of looks like Utah with a thick panhandle. This is the city of River Falls right here. And you notice it's cut in half. This is District 30 in blue. I think this is District 93. It goes all the way over to Altoona. The newer map, of course, incorporates River Falls in its entirety in one district, as well as the 4 townships that surround it. And this is like beautiful, perfect for a mapper. So we say this district here, the new district, is compact. It's sort of squarish. This one's not compact. And they're both contiguous. They're connected. So those are the sort of traditional aspects of a district that you want to have in your map. But there's some non-traditional ones, and that's one I'm going to talk about right now, and that's partisanship. So this one on the left is not colored red or blue. It's because if I did color it, it would be all this red shade down here. It would be Republican district. Where this one, you can sort of guess what the light red means. That means slightly leaning towards the Republican side. And these, I'm going to show you a lot of maps like this. These maps are just leans. They are colored by past votes of people, statewide votes, not the votes for Shannon Zimmerman in District 30, for example, but state-like governor, senator, attorney general, that kind of thing. So they're not to say that this is how it's going to come out when you have an election, but just how that district is leaning. That's enough on that, and she's worried already. All right, here's our opening words. I chose them because they had the second principle in them. Maybe we could all say them aloud. Today we celebrate a dream awakening. Today we worship with renewed hope in our hearts. Today we act on an audacity of hopes and dreams for the future. Today we begin the hard work of justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations. For today is ours to shape with vision and action. Let us worship together and celebrate a dream awakening. I really like this because it had the second principle, and I'm going to talk about equity and justice, maybe a little bit of compassion too. I was a little worried that it had worship in it twice, but I looked up in Merriam-Webster. The second definition is just a procedure, I guess I could say, that's not exactly right, that has ritual and creeds. And of course we have our creeds. There's some creeds right there with our closing words and our 7 principles. And our rituals, we know what they are. And the first ritual is chalice lighting. So you want to come on up? Lily, you want to light? Oh, you get the microphone today. Okay. This is my favorite. I've said it before, Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. And I got the Olympic torch there, passing the torch or the flame from one that we saw in the Winter Olympics. And that's sort of like working on redistricting in Wisconsin, redistricting reform. It's gone on for quite a bit, modern times, so for me, 2013 till now, so it's 13 years. I know other efforts like women's suffrage, etc., have gone on much longer than that. But at times, people do get tired, they get worn down, and new people have to step up. So maybe that's part of the reason I'm giving this talk, is to recruit new people to take the torch from me. Okay, second ritual we have, greet one another. Take a few minutes. If you attend Sunday services regularly, you've seen this slide already, and it really struck me. And so as we leave the month of paying attention, I thought I would bring it up one more time. I was over at Allison's house a week and a half ago picking up flyers and sweet rolls, yes. Thank you, David. And we had a round of introductions, and when it got to me, I said, I'm a retired math professor. And when I was writing this talk, I was thinking, is that what I pay attention to, being a retired math? I don't even pay attention to retired, except I reflect on the benefits of being retired. But I could have said, I'm an advocate for fair maps in Wisconsin. I could have said, and Allison reminded the group, that I'm heavily involved with this organization. Those are the two main things that I pay attention to. So I guess that's who I am. Maybe if there's time, when we do questions and reflections, people can say what they pay attention to. A third ritual, joys and concerns. So everybody looks familiar to me here. So you know the procedure. Just come up, say your joy or concern, and drop a pebble in the water.
My joy was the rally yesterday. Allison spoke. It was wonderful. Anne was there, and I am truly amazed at the 8 million people that also participated. Throughout the world. Rome, London, Singapore, Paris, everybody had the same issue, no kings.
A joy and an announcement of sorts. Now that the snow has melted, I walked out and looked at the garden area, so my joy is that I'm thinking about what can grow out there. And that's my announcement. If anybody has any ideas for gardening in our 2 gardens this summer, please talk to me. I would like to start planning anyway.
Don't know if this is a joy or an announcement, but my joy is the honey was completely taken away, maybe because of my announcement a couple of weeks ago. Now we have just 1 jar of jelly left. It's vintage jelly now from 2025. Oh, Anna, Anna is always questioning things. I like that. Good, you. It's basil jelly. So just have that in your cupboard, and when someone special comes over, you say, "Hey, I got this basil jelly." It's in the kitchen there. Free will donation. Did I stall long enough for anyone else to come up? Yes. Oh, thank you, Anna. For those at home, Anna, delighted to come here ever since she had kids in college, or you were in college? Yeah. So here's a rock for Anna. And the big rock for all the joys and concerns left unspoken. Okay, here we go. I want to say, Anne's looking at the clock right now. We got 44 minutes total. She's worked with me to cut this down, cut it down. You can be grateful that there are hardly any numbers in here, hardly any graphs, but there will be maps. And she said not to read my speech, so I won't read it. I never could when I lectured in mathematics. So I thought of this the other day. When I was a kid, maybe you had these experiences too. When I visited my grandparents out in the country, we didn't have a lot of entertainment, and my grandparents traveled around the world a lot, and so a traditional family entertainment was to watch my grandparents' slides in the old carousel, and we would just go through the slides, and it was okay with me because we got popcorn and apples, but we saw the same old slides over and over. But that's entertainment back in the day, in the late 50s. Anybody else experience that? Okay, yeah. So what I'm going to do is just look at the slides, and you can too, and say what comes to mind. Oh, that's the Eiffel Tower I see there, or who is that man behind the bushes? So starting on the right, this is a coloring of Wisconsin, those leans, broken down into 7,000 precincts. We call them wards in Wisconsin, as to whether they're leaning Republican or Democrat, red or blue. And so I thought it would be interesting for everyone to see that map. I heard this on the radio yesterday talking about the Texas map. It's a sea of red with islands of blue, okay? Texas is like that. Wisconsin is like that. Where is Madison? Would you think that would be an island of blue in a sea of red? This is Dane County right here. And can you guess what this is? That's Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And down here? La Crosse. And up here, up north, is Superior, Ashland. I think Grantsburg down a little bit. So when you look at this map, you're going to be looking at two distortions. Number one, this map is just geographic area, and it's not reflective of the populations. It turns out, of course, the islands have a lot more in them. For example, this is Milwaukee down here. It looks really puny, but we know it's a very populous county. And this is a Native American reservation. Very few there. I think it's the Oneida tribe. So that's one distortion. When you look at the map, you want to take that into consideration. The other distortion is these wards on the border of Lake Michigan, with the software that they're trying to remedy this for the next round. It goes halfway out into Lake Michigan. So there are no people out here, okay? But theoretically, the district goes halfway out to Lake Michigan. It reminds me, if you ever watched the morning, or heard the morning show on NPR, Jim and Dale and Jim Ed, they always had a little bit about this representative that he represented all the water in Minnesota, which is quite a bit. So he had a lot of power. So the lines that matter are the lines that mappers draw to put people into districts that have equal or roughly equal populations. And I'll give you an example right away. Painting Wisconsin in a nonpartisan way is drawing those lines so that the districts reflect the overall political composition of the state, which is, as most of you probably know, is 50-50. That's why we say Wisconsin's a purple state. It's neither red or blue, and when there's elections, we get a lot of money spent on which way Wisconsin goes. So I'm interested in drawing maps that are nonpartisan, not political. There's some problems. There's some big problems. We'll get into that. We'll study the problems, and then we'll look at some of the solutions. We used to not have this problem. I just love this map here. This is from 1921. This is the Assembly. That's our lower house in Wisconsin. And we didn't have to worry about drawing the districts because counties determined the districts back in 1921. And so I'll use my fireball here. Pierce County had one representative for Pierce County. St. Croix, same thing. If the county was too small, like Burnett and Washburn up here, they combined it. Just like you couldn't give an assembly person to Pepin, that pipsqueak of a county. We're talking populations again, but it's small in size. Sometimes when the county is too big, like Dane County down here, you get several. But the division stopped at the county line. But that all changed in 1964. Big cases, I think in Kentucky was the biggest case that said, look, you can't get this out of balance too much. You have a representative representing too few people or one that's representing too many. And so you have the redistricting problem. How to carve up the state, not by counties. There are 72 counties in Wisconsin. And this, I feel like I'm in class, so I can ask questions. Does anybody know how many districts? Assembly districts, yes? 99. Whoa, Ann's been listening to me. No, she's been studying up. And that's convenient because when we're going to talk about percentages, we can say, well, 99 districts is about equal to 100. So when we look at a percentage, we can think of districts or seats. A lot of other things happen, like the Voting Rights Act that gave minorities opportunity to be represented. So I'm just looking at this slide and making some reflections. This is the one that started it all in modern history for Wisconsin, the 2011 map. Again, these maps are going to look pretty much red because northern Wisconsin is red. But notice back in 2011, the leans, and this is based on 5 elections in 2016 and 2018, statewide elections. That includes 2016, that was Trump won, and other elections that year. I think 2016 was Ron Johnson, too, winning. That's included. And 2018 was when Tammy Baldwin won in quite a decisive manner, 55% of the state. So after you draw the lines, then all the little red wards that happen to find themselves in a blue district, they get looked at in this map as blue because they're swamped by the other blue voters. Whereas, say in District 30, if you lived in River Falls, which is a little bit blue, you get painted light red because that's the way the other voters in your district voted. So you can see, even though you start with this sort of pointillism picture of Wisconsin, when you draw the map, the lines, you get a different picture, a lot different picture, because there are umpteen million skadillion ways you can draw the lines. So for this particular lean, 51% Democrat statewide, 48.7 Republican. Now, this isn't election results, not yet, but this is just the leans. This is just counting the red districts over here, 61, and the blue districts, 38. Quite a difference. I just reinforce this on leans. The Democratic vote statewide, on average, for those 5 elections, was over 50%. But their representation in a 99-seat assembly was way less. And so this is how we measure the maps. This is how we quantify things. One measure, and there's several. We won't go into the computation, but there's several measures of how, quote, off or partisan the maps are. One is proportional deviation. It's a natural one to think about. Shouldn't the state be represented by the statewide vote rather than the seat percentage? So you just take the seat percentage, which is a little bit over 61, because remember, we have 99 assembly districts, so that's going to bump it up by a tenth of this, really, and subtract off what the overall lean was, what they deserved, and you get this number. So one of the big debates about doing nonpartisan redistricting is how low do you want this number to be? And this is what the U.S. Supreme Court had to deal with when a court case came up to them. They couldn't quite decide where the red line was. Where do you draw the line? Does it have to be as low as 10%? Does it have to be as low as 5%? Do you want it 2%, etc.? In this case, the lean, as you can see, predicted the outcomes throughout the decade. Throughout the decade, the Republicans, well, you can see, elected more than 60% of the seats in Wisconsin. That did make some people upset, especially Democrats. So this is another piece of history. You know, this is a great topic, redistricting, for classroom, civics classroom, because it's not only geography, political science, there's a little bit of statistics in there, and there's history. And so take a look at this. I got this from Ballotpedia. This is how the governor, state, and House party breakdown throughout the years from 1992 to, well, you can see it, 2026. I think you can interpret what the lines say: governor, Senate, House. Why this is important? Because in Wisconsin, if you didn't know, the legislature, that's both the House and the Senate, they draw the maps. They're responsible for drawing the maps. And the governor has veto power over those maps. So it's the two entities, the legislature and the governor, that decide the maps. And so a lot of times we have split government. So say the Democrats draw the maps. This is the same as 91. We want to look at, I should mention, 91, 2001, 2011, all those years that end in 1. And when there's split party representation, what has happened in Wisconsin in the past is they disagree and it goes to the courts. So this is an introduction to why the courts are important in redistricting. And we've just sort of been lazy and said, oh, let's let the courts decide. In the past, in this 1991-92 redistricting, the court was a federal court. The state Supreme Court didn't want to have anything to do with it. In 2001, again, disagreement. This is a little bit harder disagreement because you've got the House and the Senate split. And they went over, it took them 2 years to try to come up with a map. Finally, it bounced into a federal court again. And people submitted maps from both parties. Other parties submitted maps. I think there were 16 in all. And the court said, I don't like any of those maps, and they drew their own. So the court drew their own. Then comes 2011. This is what we call a trifecta. And when you have a trifecta of one party, they get to draw the maps in the legislature, and they get to not veto them. And they become law. And then people argue with different cases afterwards. Notice, and if you didn't know before, in 2009, 2010, the Democrats had a trifecta. And there was some disagreement about whether they should pass some sort of sane redistricting procedure. And I had a couple books, and of course I forgot to bring them. But you can find it out in Wikipedia, Redistricting in Wisconsin. Just go there. The Democrats debated about whether they thought that they would win the elections in 2011 and get to draw the maps themselves. And so Obama came in 2009. He was elected in November of 2008. So they thought they were rolling. But what happened, Republicans had a very good strategy to win the state, all 3 offices. And they got to draw that map that I just showed you. So, lots of court cases, like I said, throughout the decade. Fair Maps Coalition got started in 2013. Cases were filed. The biggest one was Gill versus Whitford. It got all the way to the Supreme Court after federal court said, yes, we agree that map that I showed you was gerrymandered. And the Supreme Court said, we don't want to make the decision. We'll find some technicality. So they bounced it back because they said that the decision that the people Whitford brought forward didn't have standing. That means they couldn't show that the people who signed on to this case were truly affected by the gerrymander. And when it was back in Wisconsin being argued again, this Rucho case came up. That's from North Carolina. And another case in Maryland came up. And finally, the Supreme Court said, we can't judge on this. This is a political issue. It's up to the states. So that's where we find ourselves now, and that's why all the states, it's like the Wild Wild West. All the states make their own rules. So I just wanted to say that people fought hard throughout that decade against that 2011 map and others, but they did not prevail. So the next redistricting came around in 2000, after the 2010 census. It came in late. Do you remember that? Came in way late. Didn't get the numbers till August of 2021. And the legislature started to meet. There's all sorts of actions that happen between these 2 maps. And I'm going to cut it short here for Ann's sake, just to say that I did a lot of work, and a lot of people did a lot of work to fight this assembly map of 2022. I'll just show you a couple of things that irked us. This was supposed to be a least change map. The Supreme Court of Wisconsin, conservative Supreme Court, said, hey, we want to get in on the action. We don't want the federal courts to decide. We want to get in on the action. And our decision is that the new map for 2022 should look as much like the 2011 map as possible. It's called least change. It's a great principle if you start off with a good product, okay? If you start off with a good product, you don't mind not changing it at all. But you do have to change it because the population shifts. Primarily, the shift in Wisconsin is out of Milwaukee County into Dane County. And so it's all happening in the southeast. But in other parts of the state, it doesn't. The populations don't shift that much, percentage-wise. But you can sort of see this guy up here compared to this guy right here as an example of gerrymandering. The Republicans said, let's draw this thin line to access these red votes over here and turn this deeper blue into a lighter blue. That's one interpretation of that new district. It's not supposed to be too much change from the older. And here in our neighborhood, this nice compact district, it looks like Utah upside down, turned into quadrupus. That's the one that I showed you before. This is the map I showed you before. So things did not change. And these are leans again, 61 Republican, 38 Democrat. And again, it's 50-50 statewide elections. So the group that I was affiliated with, and still am, Fair Maps Coalition, decided Supreme Court makes a difference. And in Wisconsin, it was, don't let anybody tell you the Supreme Court is nonpartisan. It is very partisan. It was 4-3 conservative over progressive. And so the election of Janet Protasewicz turned the court, flipped the court to a liberal one, 4-2 conservative 3. And as soon as that happened, a case was filed, and the reason it was filed was a technicality on contiguity. It turns out that, this is, I don't know, I don't think you can see it very well there, but the deep red is part of District 47, and you see these islands in this sea of 77 orange. And so a lot of precincts had these little islands of that belonged to the precinct because they belonged to the township or the city or the village, say an airport. We don't have them in River Falls, but we have sort of semblance of them as you have thin strips of land that go out to make everything connected. So the people who objected to this new map in 2000 that got adopted in 2022, they said, look, the state constitution, and I quote the appropriate verbiage there from the Constitution, says you got to have contiguous territory. And so on that, before that had been accepted, you know, you're going to have an airport out here, you want to annex that into your city, yeah, make that a golf course out in the country, make that part of the city, yeah. No, you can't do that anymore and be in a different district. So that case, Clark case, was brought before the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which is now liberal, and they said, let's not have lease change anymore, the liberal court said. And they also said, and this is important for me, that we're going to consider partisanship, political division in the maps. Nowhere had that been said before. And it was a court case, not legislation. It's just a court case. So the big deal in making a nonpartisan map is whether to have blind justice, not paying any attention to political leanings of any sort, and just draw the map from other traditional criteria. Or you can pay attention to that and make the map so that it's roughly 50-50. This is a big debate, and this is the main separation point between conservatives and progressives. And I'll just give you an example. This is down in La Crosse. La Crosse is over here. Again, I didn't do the party separation because it was all confused over here, all red. But these townships, villages out here, outside of La Crosse, they're Republican, they're red-leaning. And La Crosse is, as you saw in that bigger map, it's blue. And so what the governor did with his map was extend, just like I showed you with that district up north, 73, into La Crosse to turn this district, I think it's 95, that district into a blue district overall. And opponents of nonpartisan gerrymandering say, you know, that's cheating. That's cheating. We'd rather see you draw the maps without looking at political information. Again, the liberal court said, we're going to look at political information. They didn't necessarily say, we're going to look at, well, they did say that, but they said, we're going to have some advisors, 2 advisors, to look at it for us, along with other things. So that gets to measuring how politically tilted a map is. And I have this graph, this picture I got off the internet. I thought it was cute. All all the people that come up with different ways to measure partisanship in redistricting, they're sort of like these 6 blind philosophers feeling the elephant. They measure it in different ways, and they come up with different conclusions. And the overall idea is to not just take one or two, but to take a collection of these metrics, measurements, and see what it says about the map. But it is a difficulty because there is differences of opinion between political scientists and geographers, as they write papers and they want to shoot down one method and propose and support their own method, et cetera. This doesn't work in this case, that. So there's a lot of arguments in the literature. And it's fun. If you join me in my effort, you get to read a bunch of political science papers on how to measure a partisanship. So the two experts that, I'm going to just let you digest this. Ann says, you gotta let people read the numbers. This is the only numbers one. The two people that got appointed by the court to look into, there were 6 maps in contention, starting with the Clark here. These are alphabetically organized. This was the current map. This is the 2022 map. And these were the 6 contestants in the Clark case. When you call a case, you could say, this is what we think the map has looked like. And then you have other people saying, oh, we'd like to put that in. I think I don't know how they choose who gets to be in the race, but you got to have a lawyer and you got to petition the court. And they said, yeah, come on in. So 6 parties came on in. Governor Evers' map essentially won the case, and we'll talk about what winning means. But if you look at these columns, don't look at the heads yet, you'll see the Johnson and the legislature numbers are pretty similar, and the legislature's map is pretty similar to the current. It turns out the legislature was too lazy. And we're not going to change our map at all for this court case. So they pretty much had the current map, and they put all their chips into the Johnson map, which was supporting them. These are measures of partisanship. The thing that you need to know, average, mean, minus median, these numbers, the lower, the better. The closer to 0, the better. And the minus just means that it's favoring the Republicans, okay? And the same thing with average partisan bias. The lower, the better. When I say better, nonpartisan, okay? And this one in the middle, it's the higher, the better. Majoritarian concordance. And you can see Governor Evers had the highest one there. I'll just take 1 minute to explain that one. They looked at 13 elections in the past 4 to 6 years there, and looked at, and these were statewide elections, and looked at who won the election. And then they put those election results on the district maps, each one of those 6 district maps. And they said, did the winner of the statewide election, the votes that they were placing on those maps, win the majority of the seats? And in Governor Evers' map, about 77% of the time, 77% of 13, that matched up. The winner of the statewide election, again, this is Tammy Baldwin, this is Ron Johnson, this is 3 presidential elections. Look at those. If the winner is a Democrat and they give you the majority of the seats, that would be 49 in the assembly, then you say, yes, that achieves majoritarian concordance. And if it doesn't, you get a no. So the governor's map was successful 66.9% of the time and scored the highest in that category, which the experts, Groffman and Service, really paid a lot of attention to in their reports. And so I just put this one up just for the cartoon. The report looked pretty damaging to the, let's say, the Johnson case, because all the other 4 maps were with the governor. And so leadership in the legislature said, we don't want this case to be decided in the court. So we'll go ahead and make the governor an offer he can't refuse, and we'll choose his map. There's no way he can say, I don't want my own map. And so the governor signed it. And you can see that when it passed the legislature, the Republicans voted for it, 18 in the Senate, 63 in the Assembly. And the Democrats, just being contrary, I guess, voted against it. They voted against their own party governor. That shows you how much animosity there is in Madison these days. It really reflects what's going on in Washington, D.C. So Bev Stearney, she's part of the team. She wrote this great cartoon. Tommy Evers doing his redistricting map here. Robin Voss holding his nose and saying, yes, you can. But I want you to know, the only reason that the governor and the legislature agreed this time is because there were outside forces forcing them to agree. And that's the high point, 2024. So if you're counting, the census data came in August of 2021, and you don't get a permanent for now, map until 2024. So we had that map for the 2024 elections, and we'll have it again in this November, and it'll stay. But what a monumental waste of time this all is to just get to that fair maps point. And so just for comparison, I'll let you read this. I have the old map, which we voted with in 2022, and the new map that it's already been tested. And notice, as far as the liens go, the governor, according to this computation I use with this software, it's called Dave's Redistricting app, it's free, it's great. The governor had an advantage on liens. But how did the election results turn out? Not so even. It's almost, you can't get any closer than that, 50.3%. And it was, so, no, this has 6 maps, and I can go into great detail, but Ann says, no, look at the time. This is 6 maps from 2020 to 2024 doing the liens. That's doing this. So this is sort of modern in this time frame from 2022 to 2024. Statewide, but 6 elections. That's the way we just sort of, we don't want to, if you did Obama's election in 2008, that's 55% Democrat. That would sway it to blue. And Ron Johnson, 48.7% Republican when he beat Russ Feingold. You want to have it reflect a bunch of elections. I like that. Ask questions, but Anna's saying, hey, you got time. So we have 2 problems. One's a little problem, and one's a bigger problem. The little problem right now is a congressional map, which wasn't part of the Clark case. It's the one that decides the 8 congressional districts. And you can see right now, the lean is 4 pretty heavily Republican-leaning districts, 2 lightly. This is the one, our district, 3, the weird one that reaches up into Stevens Point area. Actually, I believe it was designed for Ron Kind, a Democrat, way back when, in 2011. And then this one down in the southeast. So there's a couple of cases that are contesting this map. I don't think I think the time is going to run out before those contests are done. But if we do get sort of a fair congressional map, it'll provide a good model for the next redistricting. But providing a good model doesn't mean a good model is going to come out of that. The bigger problem is we don't have a permanent solution. We do not have any sort of permanent solution. It's just all bound up in politics right now. And it's complicated by what recently has happened in Texas, California, and you can see the other states. It used to be redistricting would just happen right after the census, and that's it. People would say, hey, that's it for 10 years. We don't have to worry about it. No. Texas redistricted, and Justice Alito said when the Texas map came up that was contested on a racial gerrymandering, he said, no, that's partisan gerrymandering. And of course, that's perfectly acceptable because our founders, our country's founders, didn't think about the two-party system that would develop after they wrote the rules of the Constitution. And so for the people, the judges who live by the Constitution say, no, that's just fine. That's just fine. And again, it's up to the states. And the states have been reacting, okay? We have 6 Republican and 2 Democratic representatives in Congress. And you might, and they're both 6 leaning Republican, 2 leaning Democratic. You might say, can you push that up to 7 Republican and 1 Democratic? And I just like this map. It's sort of funny, even though it's got a frowny face here. If you wanted a 7 Republican congressional leaning map, you would try to somehow link Dane County with Milwaukee over here and make one super blue district, and then the rest of them, and you can see what this crazy map looked like. But if you take the U.S. Supreme Court at its word, since this map divides the state of Wisconsin in roughly equal population districts, they would have no problem with it. They would have no problem with it. Especially if the Voting Rights Act is diminished. You might say that this map was didn't represent minority, but Wisconsin only, quote, deserves 1 minority opportunity district. That's in the Milwaukee area. So the Governor Evers, has called a special session April 14th to have the legislature come up with some legislation that bans partisan gerrymandering. I looked it up. When Tony Evers first was elected, he proposed in that first 4 years 12 special sessions. 6 of them were gavelled in and gavelled out the first day. In other words, the legislature said, no, we don't want to do any work on what your issue is. And only 1 out of those 12 actually resulted in legislation. So not too much promise in this special session. Don't get your hopes up. Probably be just 1 day out. It's probably just because he said he would do this, he did it, but it's more of a political, I'm going to say ploy, to say, hey, look, we're trying to reform redistricting, but the legislature's barring. So I was going to go through congressional, but we're going to skip that and look at solutions in the last 2 minutes. 1 minute, Ann said. So the group I've been working with, Fair Maps Coalition, started in 2013. They've been working today. They've got a bunch of partners, but it's pretty weak these days. Only 4 states have independent redistricting commissions. This is what the FF Fair Maps Coalition is working towards now. They want the state of Wisconsin to have a separate public commission, sort of like the People's Match Commission that Governor Evers set up, to draw the maps, make the decision. Can't do it without the legislature's okay, but they can be advisory. So we're looking for this kind of solution here that New Mexico and New York have right now. But because California had one of these commissions that was completely independent, and then the legislature decided, hey, we want to change the maps, they went ahead and did it. So as far as independent redistricting commissions go, it's pretty weak right now because the legislatures know they can rewrite. And I'll skip over the slide that says what I want to do, but I'll just tell you what you can do. You can keep looking at this video that Jonathan's going to put up on YouTube and make it go viral. It'll take a lot of time, but I think it's worth it. I was supposed to put a little funny face after that, okay? Write and call. These are the traditional things. Write and call your legislator about this April 14th special session to ban partisan gerrymandering. You can always write a letter to the editor. I guess I'll have to. And especially, this is an easy thing, study up on the Wisconsin Supreme Court race that I've already voted for. But study up on it, see which one you want to represent you on the Supreme Court, Chris Taylor or Maria Lazar. Again, that's coming up real soon. And that's the end. And, well, it's 30 after. But if you have just a quick question or two, we can talk about that. Or a discussion item. Yes?
Real quick, was there any conversation? In the Fair Maps activity, has there been any discussion about going back to the by-county, the county lines, and then combining them if needed in rural areas?
No, because that's federal law now. You can't do that. Can't do that. Okay, all right. Here are the announcements. Back to spirituality. In the new month of April, we are what? Something, possibility. Imagining possibility. Rev Ted is going to talk to us next Sunday. The Maureen's going to update us on the tiny homes project in River Falls. And I'm going to be up here with Allison again, or maybe I can convince Allison to do it all, talking about how March and April should be one of 6 seasons suggested by Kurt Vonnegut, the unlocking season. We unlock what happens in January and February and get ready for real spring up here in North, which is only occurs in May and June. And we got the annual meeting coming up with Paula's Memorial Forum, a book read and discussion. Maybe, Ann, you want to say what the book is?
Well, we're going to try a community book reading.
Yeah, let's have the microphone over there. Microphone.
There will be more information about that, but in honor of Paula.
Okay. The Serviceberry is good is the book that we're all going to read.
What's the name of the book?
The Serviceberry.
There'll be more information coming up. It's too early to start that.
Okay, as ever, thank you for your presence and your gifts of cash. Just a quick slide here. I attended the board meeting this past week, and we're doing fairly well in donations. We sort of planned for $26,000 for the whole year, and we're estimating right now around $22,000 because we've only gotten $14,600. So we still have a third of the year left. So we'd like that number to be closer to 2,600. The overall goal is to have 15,000 down here because we had special contributions of $15,000 for the new front door. Okay, if we end a year with 15,000, then we can do our construction without going into the red next year, say July, August, new front doors and other projects. Lovely treats there provided by Sue Bouchard. Everybody's pointing. David Page, you've got something there? Ann Leake? Oh, again, those killer sweet rolls. And it's got gluten-free.
No, they didn't come because a better option is,
Oh,
there are gluten-free banana muffins.
and Sue, what'd you bring? Sue brought leftovers. Okay. All right, let's gather around for closing words. I only went 5 minutes over. I think that's pretty good for me.